An NBA contender should make a run at John Collins. Let's talk about it.
Jazz Smack, your source for information and analysis about the Utah Jazz and NBA basketball. Jazz Smack is a community for passionate Utah Jazz NBA fans.
John Collins is having an absolutely fantastic year for the Utah Jazz. He's missed some games, but he's healthy, and his numbers are unbelievably good. He's having career years in shooting percentages. He's nearly at career highs in points per game. His rebounds are good. He's an excellent locker room presence, a very good high character guy, and he's only 27 years old. He's on the borderline of being on the Jazz's timeline. So unless the Jazz get a good offer for him, the Jazz shouldn't trade him. Absolutely not. He's playing way too well to just give him away for nothing. But if you're a contender or somebody who wants to be a contender in the next couple of years, John Collins is a really good piece to add. He's a high-quality NBA starter. His numbers this year prove that. They are great. So let's actually just take a look at what John Collins is actually doing this year. So these are John Collins' numbers to date. For the 24-25 season, he is shooting 54% from the field, 46% from three. That's one of the best NBA three-point shooting percentages. He doesn't have a whole ton of attempts because of the games he's played, and he doesn't shoot very many per game. So if you go look at the NBA statistics, he's not going to show up in the top 10. But that 46%, that is an amazing number, and that's one of the best numbers in the entire league. And he's also averaging 8.3 rebounds. He's shooting 87% from the free throw line. He averages 2.3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. I mean, these are great numbers, and 18.1 points per game. So across the board, those are fantastic numbers. I mean, you just look at his highest point totals of his career. He had 2 seasons where he scored more than that. But in one of those years, he played another 3 minutes over what he's playing now. But his 3-point percentages have never been close to what he's shooting at the moment. He had 1 year, in the year that he scored the most points at 21.6, which is in 2019-2020, he did shoot 40.1% from the 3-point line that year, and 80% free throws, and he shot overall from the field 58%. And those are really good numbers across the board. I mean, that's why he ended up getting a big contract, is because he was putting up numbers like this. But this year, last year he had a finger issue, a significant finger issue. But this year he's fully healthy, and he's shooting the ball. I mean, he's shooting the ball incredibly well. 54%, 46%, 87%. Those percentages this year, I mean, those are amazing percentages. It doesn't matter. I mean, John Collins is a power forward. It wouldn't matter if he were whatever position. Those are great numbers for any position. Just unbelievable shooting. And he's a good rebounder too. In only 30 minutes a game that he's playing this year, he's getting 8.3 rebounds. That's a really nice number. I mean, any of the contending teams that are out there, if they aren't talking to the Jazz and they are lacking quality paint play, I mean, not inquiring about John Collins and actually seeing what the viability is of making making John Collins a part of your team, that would be an absolute mistake. You just got to discount what the Jazz actually paid for him to get him from Atlanta. I mean, they essentially got him for free because Atlanta couldn't find... I mean, Atlanta was searching for a trade for John Collins, and they couldn't find a taker. But the reality is that his numbers weren't as good as they are now prior to the Jazz trading for him. Those last couple of years in Atlanta, I mean, his numbers declined significantly. They just weren't that great anymore. They weren't terrible, but they weren't great considering the size of his contract. And he's making nearly $30 million a year. But right now, his play actually justifies that contract. I mean, he's playing well enough to earn that contract. And he's certainly available too. I mean, the Jazz would move on they're not going to give him away, but they would definitely move on from him for the right package. And I don't think I don't think Ainge is going to ask the farm for John Collins, especially considering the last couple of NBA trades, the one with Luka, where quite frankly, not a lot was returned from the Lakers to Dallas in exchange for Luka. Yeah, Anthony Davis is a good player, but he's also a declining player with a major league injury history and his age, and Dallas also received one unprotected first. But that's not a lot in exchange for a 25-year-old player who's considered a top 5 NBA player. And then you look at the De'Aaron Fox situation with what Sacramento received from San Antonio for him. So the Jazz aren't going to get a ton of return for John Collins, who just a couple of years ago was traded for a second-round draft pick. It's not realistic to expect multiple firsts and whatnot. But so I think he is attainable for a reasonable exchange. I mean, the Jazz are going to want draft capital, but John Collins is certainly worthy of a first-round pick, a good first-round pick. And he's 27 years old. I mean, he's right in line to be good for the next several seasons, certainly through the end of his contract. I mean, he is prime for the taking, and to just not pursue him, I mean, it's crazy. But those are my opinions. I think that John Collins would make a very good asset acquisition for a contending team, a team that wants to contend for a title this year, next year, and the year after that. Yes, John Collins does have a player option on his contract, I believe, next year. But still, the guy's in line. He should be receiving... The Jazz should be receiving significant interest from contending teams about John Collins. He is that good, and he's deserving to be on a good team. Anyway, I hope everybody has a good evening, and let's continue to watch the trade wires. Have a good night, everybody.